I think there are two things where the UMH Classic left a gap. In the market, there was fundamentally the way how you could deploy software, and then there was like this, let's do it in Kubernetes. You can also do it as a binary, so install it on Windows, or you can do it just in a simple Docker environment. And then we chose back then the route because UMH was multiple services, so Kafka, MQTT, database, Grafana, and Bentos, etc. Like the logical route for us was getting into a K3S, which is a minimal version of Kubernetes type of deployment, which on the upside, you can directly make it as a high availability setup. It imposes the ability to be quite scalable. So not only like from the availability perspective, but then also under increased load, you can scale services as they now need. And yeah, then you have this integrated features of versioning, which now is a standard feature in Kubernetes with Helm chart, etc., etc. The problem that we saw are two things. I think the first and most awkward one, specifically as an open source startup, it makes it harder to get started. So you have like a little bit of prerequisites that you need to cater to. For example, you need to have a certain operating system, which we then enable to then install Kubernetes into. Then you need to install UMH into the Kubernetes cluster, which is actually a multiple step approach, actually closer to installing software as a binary, as a to be installed software stack, like in Windows, which has a lot of requirements on their side, which was quite a problem. And secondly, it also is like a little bit unflexible if you want to have like super specific Kubernetes requirements, if you have your own OpenShift or your own Kubernetes distribution where you want to integrate it to, which then needs a little bit of configuration. Not impossible, but fundamentally on both sides, not that easy to do. And so then on the other side, you could just have it in a single Docker container. So like one product, one thing, one Docker container. So it's super easy to get started, completely independent of the operating system underlying it. It's super low complex. So Docker run up, done. And the problem that normally comes with it, it's not separated. This was also one of the key design decisions that we took when choosing for Kubernetes. If one service fails or one container fails, it doesn't take down the rest. And this is what we see in huge problem with a lot of existing tools out there. You need, for example, take one Node-RED and you connect multiple machines to it. One subflow is like creating critical issues. Could be various reasons for that, but it's also not Node-RED. It could be all types of software. But then it takes the rest of the stack with it. So misconfiguring one machine PLC now causes all the others to actually drown. And this is something that we said, okay, UMH Core needs to combine a little bit of that. So we said, fundamentally, we want to have this easy to deploy container, which is then just one single Docker run away from installing the UMH Core components, which in our case is Bentos and Kafka, getting data in, modeled out. But under the hood, we rely on a process management software, which is called S6. It's actually a little bit old and boring, but fundamentally it segregates specific processes. So what your PC would do in the backend, like you have a Skype, etc., as decoupled processes. So if one dies, it doesn't necessarily take the other with them. And this is now the same logic that we applied also to UMH Core. So Kafka is its own service, and then each additional Bentos configuration, which shoots data from A to B, is all an own service. So it's completely decoupled and thereby actually more scalable in a lot of ways, because before we relied on a pod per UMH Bentos. So each new connection spawned a new Docker container. There's a pod limit of roughly 100-150 containers per Kubernetes cluster, which is now not a limitation anymore. You can run thousands of processes. And so under the hood, UMH Core is actually more scalable than UMH Classic. It doesn't have all the components in there. So UMH Classic is definitely a piece of software that we will support looking forward. But at a certain point, we'll now merge both user journeys, to replace certain components in the UMH Classic Helm chart with UMH Core. So fundamentally, this is but also the good thing, UMH Classic is a Helm chart, so we can, across versions, interchange components. And this will definitely not be something that we neglect, but fundamentally make it easier to get started, and also then to integrate if you have super specific Kubernetes requirements, you can easily install it. You can configure it via CI/CD, because it's fully compatible via external configuration files via YAML. So I would say best of both worlds.